This is a little bit outside of our... It's a little bit of Overwatch. Okay, we're not talking about Overwatch here. That's not why I'm watching this. We don't really chat about Overwatch too often in here. But a Blizzard dev leaked why Jeff Kaplan quit, evidently. And it leads to some of the inner workings of Blizzard, what's really going on over there. So this is an interesting video. Let's check it out and see why, in fact, one of the originals of Blizzard and, the face of Overwatch for so long just suddenly quit. I bet if they had Ashka, their
like the
blood
world of
would be
Warcraft,
higher
none
up.
of you are here by choice anymore.
True. Okay, let's see why he quit. Some of the Blizzard drama that's going on. If you don't know, there's been a lot of Overwatch drama, and that's because they recently announced that the PvE part of Overwatch 2 is not going to happen. And essentially, that was what Overwatch 2 was sold on, was, oh, we're bringing PvE to the game. So basically, Overwatch 2 was just a giant patch, essentially. He didn't have a phone, maybe. Let's see what happened. Let's stop speculating. Let's actually see what happened here.
What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. A YouTuber friend
Rip
of mine,
Overwatch 2
Sir
community,
Swag,
yeah.
released a video where he outlines quotes from an anonymous source that he has from Blizzard Entertainment, a developer that knows the inner workings of what was going wrong on Team 4, the dev team that was working on Overwatch 2 and the now canceled PvE. I reached out to Sir Swag as a precaution to say, hey, bro, is this legit? Yes, it sure is. He has my confidence and trust. We'll break down the details of the leak, and as well, I think this illuminates a lot of the growing story arc of Jeff Kaplan leaving and the inner turmoil with the company. The anonymous source says the cancellation was 1000% an upper management executive issue. It was
Seems
all
like
about
an upper
profit
management
margins,
decision.
that they were looking at a game like Diablo Immortal, which was making $2 million a day, and that
Holy
changed
shit.
the expectations for the suits. The PvE was looked
Is
at.
Diablo Immortal going to be the end of Blizzard? They're making so much money off of Diablo Immortal. Is that it? Are they going to come out with WoW 2 and it's going to be a mobile game? Oh god.
As
God.
increasingly irrelevant and not going to earn money in the long term. Keep in mind that
Yeah.
just the live service multiplayer
Right.
game that they already had all of a sudden turned on a new revenue stream just by adding a battle pass and cosmetics. So you can see why higher executives would look at that and say, why do we want to invest in making this big, complicated, expensive game when we can make money in easier ways? So these claims stand to reason to me, but it gets worse.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, there was slowed production, and as progress got worse and they struggled to meet deadlines, there began a vicious cycle that was doomed to fail. The leak talks about talent leaving or getting reorganized to other projects, but also
Jeez.
keep in mind that there was the lawsuit, which maybe some employees left due to protest, but as the production got worse, they actually pulled resources from the team, which was a doomed
That's
to
good.
fail strategy. And a
Yeah,
little bit
and so Jeff basically was probably getting fed up with this shit. What I will say is executives leading game design is always a horrible idea, man. Because executives just think in terms of dollar, right? They're not thinking long term. They're not thinking about fanfare or anything like that. They're just thinking, hey, man, is this thing going to make as much as Diablo Immortal? No? Then cancel it. Which is a horrible way to make a game. And basically a good way to fuck over your customer base and the people working on the game. Talk about demoralizing, man. These guys probably were fucking working on this for so long just to be shit on.
at odds because
why he
the
dipped.
team
Yeah,
is
he fucking
always
dipped fast.
publicly talking about how they've expanded the team, doubled the size of the team. But no offense, when they bring on some
Well,
of the new developers, they
if you only
are
had 2 people on the
often
team
quite
and now it's
young.
4, you
And no
doubled it.
offense to young people, but a lot of the best devs and the seasoned veterans, the ones that usually have enough experience or knowledge, well, those are beginning to get thin, as many of them have left to other companies. So the anonymous source speaks quite contrary to a lot of the public messaging that we're getting from Blizzard. If you pay close attention, multiple Blizzard devs in the chats, live streams, BlizzCon line, the blog posts say how they've doubled the size of the team, increased, way bigger than they've ever been before, but at the same time, they're admitting publicly as well that the workload they had was too much. It really sucks that the developers have to be themselves the marketing mouthpiece for the game as well.
This is the kind of shit I'm talking about. I'm not saying Microsoft is a pure company by any means, or not a company that chases profit just like all of they do, of course. But I just think they have way more resources than Blizzard does. And they'll understand, they'll have a way of implementing those resources and adding those resources to the game. That's why I think the merger is good. Because here's the thing. As much as we loved Blizzard back in the day, they're not the same company. They're not. And honestly, the way it's being run, I personally think things can't get any worse. So a merger with Microsoft, hey, why not? Or acquisition by Microsoft, hey, why not? I think things can only go up from here. I say
Tell
go
the
for it.
lies that Bobby Kotick would want them to tell.
It's like
Keep
Pete
in mind,
Carroll
this
going
is
to the
same
NFL
guy that
right
would
before
reportedly
USC. Yeah,
write
exactly.
verbatim the
100%.
responses that his figureheads would say in response to the lawsuits. So you really have to be careful
jumped ship while it
absorbing
was
any
sinking.
of the PR speak from anyone at Blizzard as if it's them speaking themselves. No. They're speaking for Bobby. So they talk about the team size expanding, but does that mean part-time work? Does that mean the commissioned artists that they have to churn out the skins content for the game that you have to imagine they
more
pay
janitors.
less than a full-time employee? You're not really going to pin them down on any logically congruent storyline because somehow they both want us to believe that the team is massive, big, and capable, but also they have to apologize for canceling the massive, big project that they had and instead transferring all.
Craziest thing about it is that project was literally what was Overwatch 2 was sold on. That is 100% what the game was sold on, was the campaign. That was the only difference between that and Overwatch 1, other than the graphics update, which could have been put in a patch. Damn, they fucked people over.
All their energy to something that is lower on production cost and a higher return on investment, as opposed to making a wonderful game that will build the franchise's IP strength overall. No, Bobby doesn't like that. He likes profit margins. Small investment, big payoff. Instead of a bigger investment and also a big payoff. No. The amount of profit is all that
they were
matters.
doing a campaign.
Another contradiction from the anonymous leak, they said a lot of the developers left when the work from home policy was enacted, meaning that employees had to actually live near the Blizzard campus where it's very expensive. This is directly in contrary to Jared Ness, who says the opposite publicly. But again, I feel like this is a case where Blizzard's PR speak tries to have it both ways. Did people quit because of the work from home? If they did, that would ultimately have a significant effect on your productivity. No? And if the team is big and capable, well, where's the
campaign
products
is
for
canceled
it?
now.
It really sucks to have these
campaign is
developers speak on the behalf of the company and feed us these lies that just don't add up. But ultimately, we know who to blame. It should have been no surprise to anyone. The anonymous source goes on to say something that I think we all know, is that the devs really just did the best with what they were given. And as they've said publicly,
I don't
developing
blame
the
the devs at
talent
all, man.
trees for every single hero in the game was an insane proposition. I almost wonder if they would have been better off just like taking 8 heroes or so and making that game first just with them. Because from Reddit responses from the devs, they've told us that it was easier to design a brand new hero for PvP than to do the skill trees, which had all these different options for PvE, even though it doesn't have.
Wait, they didn't know skill trees were hard to do. They didn't walk across the other side to the other to the office on the other side. Talk to the Blizzard team, the Warcraft team, about how hard talent trees are to balance. Of course that shit's hard. Yeah, of course that was a big undertaking. And of course, it was not going to make as much money as Diablo Immortal.
As balanced.
The golden
Somewhere between
child.
30 and 50 talents for each hero in the game. That's an insane amount of content, especially when you think of like an action RPG. I'm thinking Diablo, Borderlands 3. There's only a handful of characters in the game, and then they span off into a few skill trees, but it's not so much more than the amount that they're saying there. If they did try to do that game, it would have been the biggest
Kaplan
action
just
RPG
jumped, man.
type game
He was
of all
like, "Oh,
time.
fuck
So it's
this."
really heartbreaking to see them not be given the resources to make that game of the decade that it could have been. But
Man,
it makes
Overwatch has had this happen so many times. Overwatch itself was birthed from a failed project. Project Titan. If you guys remember, Project Titan was supposed to be the next MMORPG from Blizzard. And it became so, I guess, so huge and just such a massive project that they couldn't finish anymore, that it became Overwatch, essentially. And now there's another project Overwatch has been a problem child, man.
sense when you think to the way that Activision Blizzard King runs all of their IP. Candy Crush, Call of Duty, they want
Pete
Overwatch
Carroll
to be
knew what
like
was
that,
going on.
and it needs to be a different
good
game
analogy.
if they wanted to make a real game instead of a cash flip with a low investment requirement
a
and a
mobile
high
game.
return on investment, aka milking out IPs and giving the least amount of product for the most amount of money. It's a really unfortunate business strategy because if you look at a game like World of Warcraft, which is just outrageously massive, Overwatch 2 could have been the next thing. It could have reached towards the MMO aspirations that Aaron Keller talked about in the dev blog in my previous video. It could have reached that size of game. But at the moment, the best thing we're going to get is like a full campaign in like years of time, which I suppose is better than nothing,
Yeah,
but
they're
it's
just gonna do,
nowhere
like,
near
little
the
missions,
artistic
like
vision
they
of what
always
these
done.
devs wanted to do. And that's where I want to transition to talk about Jeff Kaplan,
don't
where
have phones.
it's blatantly obvious now that he was not signing up for any more of this ATVI BS. And while you guys know I had a lot of philosophical differences with Jeff over the years, I'll be straight up, the guy just did not like me at all. I was a thorn in his side for years, but I always respected the man's integrity and artistic vision and very unique route to arriving to a competitive
I thought
multiplayer
Jeff Kaplan
game
was a
that
cool
was
guy.
unlike any other. Because Jeff worked on the WoW team for so many years, and as Aaron Keller said in his blog
Chilling, eating
post, the
cookies
team
and-
were WoW devs. They thought of things in more of the magical player immersion point
Yeah,
of view.
exactly. You could tell he
Whereas
cared.
other
I
competitive
agree.
titles, let's say Valorant, are all about the competition every step of the way, which does have its benefits, I will admit, but you can see the weaknesses clear as day. The characters are less defined. They often aren't as imaginative or intuitive. So over the years, I had to grow a level of respect for the alternate route that guys like Jeff Kaplan or
Yeah,
the
the Overwatch, as far as a first-person shooter, had some of the best storytelling, I thought. The characters had the best background stories. And now you guys could correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen an RPG or first-person shooter do stuff like that. They've tried, but I don't know if the storytelling's gone as deep. And it was supposed to go even deeper with the campaign, but that is gone. Not gonna
now
happen.
former lead hero designer Jeff
And I thought
Goodman
that was
would
what made
take to
Overwatch
design.
unique.
They look to maximize the fun first and worry about the competitive viability later. It gave us the GOATS meta we were trapped in, but it also gave us 2016's Game of the Year. So I tend to take the
Right.
good with the bad. Now let's look back to
Yeah,
quotes
Destiny
from
tried,
the
but didn't get it out of the
2019
park.
announcement of Overwatch 2. Keep in mind that many of
This
us believe
cinematic
that
was
this
so
was
badass.
pushed out the door because Bobby Kotick wanted to change the news cycle surrounding BlizzCon with growing controversy over the Blitzchung incident.
Yeah,
So they
was
had to
such
come out with
badass
the big
cinematic,
announcement
man.
then, even though it's pretty clear in hindsight, they weren't really ready to do so. On stage, Jeff explained the endlessly replayable missions that they called hero missions, and he said it's what adventure mode is to Diablo. It was aimed to have
Right.
a progression system with custom abilities and talents. Then he went on to explain that they wanted to redefine the sequel, and this is where I always thought it was very tone deaf to speak this way.
Redefine the sequel. Oh God. Oh man, that did not age well, did it?
Because while Jeff was trapped at Activision Blizzard, where they're used to sequel churn like Call of Duty coming out every year, losing all of the progress,
Division 1 and 2
cosmetics,
did
and
an alright
everything
job,
to play
really.
a different game year on year, the rest of the industry had already changed to free to play. In 2019, Fortnite was the biggest game in the world, and at the start of that year, Apex Legends launched. So we had two games destroying Overwatch at the same time, which were
Right.
free to play and had all of the benefits Jeff was talking about for the sequel already free in the game. So Jeff wanted his sequel to bring all of the old players along with, so you could keep all your cosmetics and you'd still be able to play with the new players in Overwatch 2. We never really got
Right.
the full explanation of what that meant because it didn't make any sense, but over the years we were able to stitch it together.
I was one of the
and
originals.
what it was going to
I had
be is that
purchased
the
Overwatch 1, played
PvP
it for
would
a
just
long
get updated and the PvE would be an entirely separate Diablo game, essentially, with its own campaign.
This is what the whole thing was sold on. It was, hey, bring your Overwatch 1 shit into Overwatch 2. It's going to be a newly, new refresh on the graphics of the game and everything. And the truth is, Overwatch 2 is going to have an entirely new PvE part to the game that you've never seen before, and it's going to be so cool, and it's a new game. Hence the 2. Well,
and Endgame.
It was.
And you would pay for that new experience, but you could also just stick to PvP if you wanted. They would be separate. That was always a competitive disadvantage, though, because at Activision Blizzard, they were a bit in a bubble with the box product model being
people wanted
so
to try the
profitable for
PvE.
them.
Yeah, that was the
writing
hype
was on
behind
the
Overwatch
wall
2.
even at that point. If the rest of the industry
graphics?
was on the box product
Look,
model...
they talked a lot about the graphics update, but I mean, what the hell? I guess the game looked a little bit refreshed, but really, what was it? It was like Tracer had a couple more freckles on her face. Maybe they, some enhancements to, maybe some nerfing to some asses. What was it? Everyone knows Widowmaker had a great ass in Overwatch 1 and 2. We didn't need better asses. We had good asses already. The realisticness of the graphics update, I felt like was just like was okay, but PvE was the real seller of Overwatch 2.
Then yeah, that would have been revolutionary.
Better lighting,
but with
yeah,
so many
more ray
free-to-play
tracing,
games
essentially.
already robbing attention from Overwatch, that was going to be doomed to fail. And think about this from Jeff Kaplan's point of view. He gets to be the scapegoat that goes on stage to overpromise this massive game that they're trying to make, that Aaron Keller cleared up on how audacious the vision of this was. That not only did Jeff want that, each hero having 30 to 50 talents in a PvE endlessly replayable Diablo game. Behind the scenes, they wanted another higher, bigger game, a MMO game over that after they made Overwatch 2. That's what Overwatch 3 was going to be. So at some point in the company, based on the leaks that we know from Sir Swag, they're looking at the numbers of all of this and how Jeff wants to scale this up, and I'm assuming a suit said no. In fact, I'll give you less resources. Good luck doing whatever you want. It always felt odd to me because Jeff Kaplan was vice president of Blizzard Entertainment, but I think as the coverage of the lawsuit and everything has gone on, we all know that there's really just one king at Activision Blizzard. It's Bobby. Every other position of leadership just seems to be a token. And hey, I mean, vice president was already probably a token position.
Well, Bobby
but it felt
wants, Bobby
strange that
gets.
he couldn't have more pull to get what he wanted. But adding everything up now in hindsight, I think Jeff was looking down the barrel of the change of strategy that was being pushed onto him from top down, seeing everything that he wanted to build be reduced to rubble, and Jeff has to sit there and think, does he want to have to come out again and give this massive apology that he shouldn't have to make? I don't think Jeff would have wanted to lie to us and say that PvE is coming and then months later down the line explain that it's in this diminished capacity after he had just years ago on stage promised the world.
Put yourself in Jeff's position, right? For one, money is not a problem, right? The man has money, so he doesn't need the money that he's getting from the position. He's been working on this passion project where he wants to turn this game into something else, something more PvE oriented. Or with a part of it that's more PvE oriented, and he was excited about that, I'm sure. And then all of a sudden, it's all gone, and he's gonna have to be the one to deliver that message. I think a lot of us would have been like, you know what? I don't fucking need this. I don't need the money. I don't need the stress, and I don't need to be the dick who tells everybody that guess what? This second game that we told you guys is coming. Well, it was really just a graphics refresh. I would have dipped too, man. He's like, fuck this, I'm out of here, and someone else can deal with this company and this problem.
Why you'd want to leave for that? Let someone else have to tell those lies.
Jeff needs to go
He
Baldur
was not
fix
going to
that.
walk the plank. Because while I have been on board for the free-to-play change, expensive cosmetics, I don't mind paying a battle pass because I like the content I get in it. I enjoy it more than loot boxes. I like the seasonal model.
We're gonna get normal
I like
Sark,
the
and then we're gonna
update
go
cycle
into
we
Rogue.
have. I even will probably like the campaign. So it's not
Good luck
even
with
really
Raid.
necessarily
Thanks,
any of
Galen.
these decisions that I hate. Because I never needed a Diablo game for Overwatch because Diablo 4 was coming anyway. I like Diablo 4. I'll play Diablo 4 for Diablo. The thing that I can't stand is the bait and switch, is the lying, is the thought that maybe I bought more skins thinking they were still making that big game that they did not tell us they have canceled when they knew they canceled it before they even launched Overwatch 2.
I mean, thank God Overwatch 2 was free to play, or this would be a fucking lawsuit. I'm not gonna lie. People would be fucking getting together and suing Blizzard on this shit. Thank God it was free to play. At least they did that.
Creators out like
I don't
myself
like free to play
show
personally.
us all the amazing
I don't care about free to play. I'm prefer to pay for a game if it's gonna be better. But Blizzard dodged a bullet by making Overwatch 2 free to play because they didn't deliver on what was essentially on the box cover of this game.
things they were doing for PvP. And when we kept nagging them, especially me, by
Would've
the
been
way,
yeah,
the most
exactly.
annoying of
Fallout
any of the
76 is a good
creators,
example.
asking the hardest questions behind the scenes always, with only a few other of my peers that even come close to how much I hold Blizzard's feet to the fire, we kept nagging about PvE, and we never got a response. I don't think I've ever used a cuss word on this channel. Fuck you, Blizzard. Fuck you. Fuck you for lying to my face and to all of our other creators, getting us on board with a strategy that you were not disclosing fully the changes and downgrades you were making. I am never trusting another thing you say ever again, because I will have to admit, I was lured by the personality and goodwill from the people who are working on the front lines, but fooled into believing that they speak genuinely. They often do, but they also speak PR speak for Bobby Kotick like everyone else does at that company, and you can't expect anything more from that. I am beyond...
Look, yeah, I do. I kind of disagree with him here. I mean, for sure these guys were passionate about making this shit and making a good PvE part of this game. I'm sure they were excited about it. But then their CEO gave them a shit sandwich and told them, hey, why don't you go ahead and give this to the customers? I'll see you guys later. I'm going to go on a yacht trip around Europe real quick. What are they supposed to do? How do you make a shit sandwich taste good? You can put some lettuce on it, put some mustard, you know, maybe a few pickles. But you go to the nearest deli and get the best bread you can find to maybe make it more edible. But at the end of the day, you're giving your customers a shit sandwich. There's nothing you can do. And he's kind of the creator of this video seems kind of angry with him, but I don't blame him, man. There's nothing these guys could have done. Trust me, I think they were just as disappointed. Imagine putting all that work into this shit and then just having the guy who understands nothing about the game and has done nothing but suck off the dick of Diablo Immortal, which is a far lesser game than what they were trying to do here. And that guy comes down here and says, you know what? Canceled. Make sure you let people know. I'll see you guys later. I feel bad for them. They were not in an easy position.
Irate
Edible
about how
glitter,
we,
yeah, that
as
might have
the
made it
entire
better.
community, have been treated by Bobby Kotick. It's been his fault the entire way through, and the leaks
Jeff,
just
maybe
keep
watch.
compounding.
I don't know where Jeff ended
Remember
up,
leaks
but
from a while ago
I'm sure
from an
he is gonna
associate
work on
producer
something.
that went to Riot Games saying that Bobby Kotick would come down after telling the dev team to work on one big direction and switch gears entirely, ruining progress. Now, on top of it, we have leaks saying that they would cut resources and make the project doomed to fail by having ridiculous expectations funded by starvation resource tactics. I'll end this rant today by reminding you Jeff Kaplan's final response before leaving the company, written almost as if it was on a napkin in lowercase. Jeff's final personal note, he says, "I'm leaving Blizzard Entertainment after 19 amazing years. It was truly the honor of a lifetime to have the opportunity to create worlds and heroes for such a passionate audience. I want to express my deep appreciation to everyone
worlds
at
and heroes,
Blizzard
but
who
not launch them.
supported our games, our game teams, and our players. But I want to say a special thanks to the wonderful game developers that shared in the journey of creation with me. Never accept the world as it appears to be. Always dare to see it for what it could be.
Devs
I hope
going
you
and
do the
making their own
same.
studios is a
GG,
thing that's been
Jeffrey
happening.
Kaplan. And of course, a notable exemption here. The silence on certain aspects of the company is deafening. Supporting his developers as he always did, and very clearly throwing shade at the suits that sabotaged his dream project, so much so that he was willing to leave it. After being one of the longest running developers at the company, who helped build the skyrocketing World of Warcraft and transitioned into another team to work on Project Titan, which eventually transformed into Overwatch. And I can't help but imagine if Bobby Kotick was willing to pay himself less and the talented people making the things that make him all that money more, if we could have just had more wonderful things. Overwatch 1 was a beacon of hope in the game industry when there was a lot of also-ran type shooter games out. Overwatch 2 was supposed to be the walk, as Aaron Keller describes it. Instead, as we know, that vision will never be realized at this pace, at the level of commitment that Bobby Kotick is willing to give this dev team. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.
And that was probably the most Overwatchy content we'll ever do here on this channel.